make a joke about the radio voice. But
yeah,
I assume
it did get used. I mean, at Disney, I did a bunch of voices. Never got paid for it because, like I say, it was no dough. You know, we'd be walking down the hall, and X would just grab somebody, pull them into the Studio A, and go, "Here, do this voice."
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
I did because I auditioned for Max the Deer for the Country Bear. So Randy Bright said, "Okay, we'll pay you for that one," because everybody else was coming in and getting like thousands of dollars.
Right.
And so when I got the role, I said, "So what are you going to give me?" He said, "I'll take you for lunch at Visa." Down, great. So I got a burrito.
Mike.
Hi, Mel. How are you, buddy?
Long time no see.
Yeah.
Not really. But so great to sit down with you after running around. Congratulations on some of the honors of your work. We'll get into the most recent efforts, but wow, what a journey you've been on, my friend.
It's been 45 great years. It's been fun.
Now, if my math is right, 20 years at Disney or quarter century?
To 25 at Disney, yeah.
Yeah, over 25, right? And then 2 decades at...
about 14, almost 15 years at Universal Creative.
Wow.
So,
and then still rocking and rolling, right?
Still doing some work with some friends.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. Now I can choose what I want to do, with whom I want to do it, and what it can be, so...
Well, I've got to ask, I don't think I've ever specifically asked you this. I mean, when I think radio voice and genetic... gifting.
Well, thank you, Mel. That's very kind.
And also the strange familiarity. Were you ever in radio in college? Or?
I was actually started WJRZ Stereo 100 in the South Jersey Shore, when it was literally in the middle of the Jersey Pine Barrens and was nothing. I used to go on like 2 to 3 in the morning because I met the overnight jock. And he used to let me come on and just play disc jockey. Never actually went on full time yet. But I got my first radio job at in Coos Bay, Oregon, 123 KHSN. 123 KHSN. The Mike West request line is open.
Nice.
So it was good. I went to the KISS Broadcasting Workshop in LA, and
KISS FM.
Yeah, and we got on the KBW network, which I think went across the street.
Wow.
That's how much we broadcast. But,
all the way.
But it was fun. I got to do things with George Carlin and Dawes Butler during that workshop. So I got to meet some really cool people.
Wow. So did that radio voice carry you over to WDI in 1980, or how did that pre-Epcot era happen?
It did. When I got into Imagineering the early 80s, Exitencio had a group called No Dough Productions. And it was people...
No dough as in no dinero?
As in no dinero, yeah. You worked here, so you could do whatever you wanted to do, but you were already
paying you once,
for
not
it.
twice.
Right, exactly. So I ended up doing a lot of voices for the attractions, just because we were available. Actually,
Any favorite, which ones?
Well, let's see, Commander Fulton for the Living Seas. That was good. And some things are still, I think, the Snoring Monk in Spaceship Earth, and the caveman going "Umbade Baduste."
Wow!
Is still there. I don't know. They've redone Spaceship Earth, so I don't know if I still survive. So
close listen next.
Oh yeah, big time names. But I did get to do Max the Deer on 2 of the Christmas show and the Vacation Hoedown show. So that was fun. Got to work in the studio with Frank Welker and Thurl Ravenscroft. And
legends.
You think I have a deep voice? You get in the studio with Thurl Ravenscroft, and man, you feel like a soprano. You know. It was great. And Frank Welker, who did great mouth effects, he was in there and he would make sound effects just to drive the technician crazy. And so the guy's out there switching, trying to think, wait, I'm getting some snits and pops and things. That was Frank doing it. Thurl and I were just cracking up while he was trying to figure it out. So
Well, I'm guessing you got A's in verbal and written communication skills.
Well, as long as they didn't have to read my penmanship, I was fine.
Okay.
But
so writing, has that always been a passion since the early days?
It was. That was what I started out at in the communications department doing.
Just like Marty.
Yeah, it's right. Well, Marty was my mentor. I mean, he was my hero, you know, and the writers always had kind of a special place in Marty's heart, you know, because that's where he came from. So, but I started out doing the nomenclature for the Italy, Japan, and Mexico pavilions at Epcot. And a lot of attractions have come and gone, but the plaque copy at the Japan pavilion is still there. So I still have it.
I'm going to go look at it.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's fascinating. Believe me. Take my word for it.
That's pretty awesome. Well, I mean, what a formative time to be at then WED Enterprises, right? In 1980, pre-Epcot.
It was.
Any favorite memories that of that era? I mean, you got to hang around with some TEA masters, not necessarily before there was ever a themed entertainment
well, they're Disney
association.
legends. A lot of the guys became legends. I counted recently that I worked with or knew 38 Disney legends. And it's not. It doesn't make me any better, but it makes me very grateful for the opportunity to work with these people because I got to WED in 1980. All the original Imagineers were still there, you know. And Herbie, Herbie and X Atencio became another one of my absolute mentors. He was just an amazing. They were all so kind and giving of their time. That's what made it great. None of them wanted to be an executive. None of them wanted to do anything but what they loved to do. And, you know, you go and talk with Rolly Crump and just hear amazing stories for hours on end and go back and watch Blaine Gibson carving something in his studio. And
no screen credits, no Theo Awards.
And they didn't care.
No
they just did it for the love of the job. And we were a bunch of young knuckleheads. We didn't know who these people were, you know, and then later you find out.
Just nice guys.
Just really, were just really nice men and women to work with. Wow. And then later on, you know, you find that people thought these guys are really cool. I thought, wow, I guess they were. I must be really cool too. You know? No, but it was a blessing to be taught the business by those guys when I came into it, and I carried that with me for my whole career.
What a great word! What a blessing!
It was a real blessing.
I'm very jealous. It's awesome. Well, my generation gets to work with guys like you, the nice guys down the hall.
I pay it forward for those guys what they gave me. Wow, and I owe it to them.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Any favorite career highlights on the Disney side as you're getting going?
Yeah, I mean, 25 years to start to kind of think back on it. I was talking to Bob Weiss recently about some of the moments, and we were exchanging stories. And remember, one of the times was Jim Henson came to the studios, the Disney MGM studios, and Bob was walking around George Lucas and some other VIPs, and so he asked me if I would. Yeah, they asked me to really twist my arm. I said, sure. So I got to spend an entire day just walking around the park with Jim Henson, and he was just the kindest, nicest person. Wow. And remember, we sat down to lunch at the back lot
and another certifiable genius.
Yeah, well, we talk about legends.
Yeah.
But we sat down to have lunch, and he said, so what's it like working for Disney? And I thought, I'm having lunch with Kermit the Frog, you know. But I said, would you do an autograph for my daughter? And he drew Kermit, you know, and signed it Jim Kermit. I mean, it's just those kind of moments that you just really treasure.
Yeah.
And then later in the day, we were actually all going to watch the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. And somehow at the beginning of the row, we had VIP seats down below. And as it turned out, Bob brought his people in, and I walked in with Jim, and I ended up between George Lucas, me, and Jim Henson. And I thought, out of 2,000 people, somebody must have a picture from that evening, but I've never been able to find it. You know, but I remember it, so that's what counts.
Any favorite attractions? I mean, some of the Disney MGM Studios days, I mean, that was like a whole new... It was. Before Animal Kingdom, that was truly a new species of at least Disney theme park, right?
Yeah, and it was, I mean, I guess Epcot always holds a very special place because it was my first one.
Absolutely.
And I remember standing there and seeing the park when it opened and just tears in my eyes. And I remember the first time I came down on a business trip and the steel legs for a Spaceship Earth were in the ground. Yeah. And I've been watching the model in the drawings for a year and a half, and I saw that and I just couldn't believe it was real.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's
so you're going to have a show building and a ride floating above your head.
And who knows, I would be a voice inside of that big ball one day.
Who knew?
You know? But,
that's amazing.
But it was great. It was so much fun, and we were also young and learning for that project. Yeah. We were just trying to figure out what we were supposed to do, and Marty, God bless him, he was trying to get us to do what he wanted us to do. But that was great, and then the studios opening under Bob Weiss's tutelage and direction on that. And I remember the night before, we all had dinner at the Brown Derby, and we all kind of walked around this beautiful park with the lighting on.
Yeah.
We kind of went, oh, do we have to give it up?
A sense of place there.
It really was.
I remember the year that opened, I was actually working on Sunset Boulevard at Crossroads of the World.
Oh, yeah.
And for American Film Institute. And to go to that park and to kind of go to the workspace that I was just at yesterday and to see the edited, shrunk, kind of unreal version of it. It was just surreal. Yeah,
it is. When you go back and you look at the models and then you see what it became, it's really awe-inspiring. And I tell the young people today that if you have an opportunity to work on an attraction, it's great. But if you have the opportunity to build a park, it's really something that you'll never forget in your entire career. When you stand
and
there,
you're one of the few that have had a chance to do that with a few parks now.
I did for that, for Epcot, for the Disney MGM Studios, for Disney Studios Paris. I was part of that team. I went over there for 6 months. And Animal Kingdom, I had a little sliver of thing at Animal Kingdom, but still to share that with Joe and the amazing team that put that park together.
And there's this new little thing in Orlando, I hear.
Oh, yeah. That
Epic something?
Epic, yeah. It was kind of an epic adventure.
Epic Universe.
Yes.
It's got to be of size, I imagine.
It is. Well, the name tells it all.
Right.
But I was blessed again when I was still towards the end of my career at Universal. I was executive producer for the initial Blue Sky development. Wow. And so we started to put that together, and what it became today is way beyond anything I had to do with. Believe me, I take some honor in being.
What
part
were
of the
some of
beginning
the early marching orders or goals or ambitions?
Make it epic. But
delivered.
It's tough because you're looking at a whole new experience, and we had Islands of Adventure, and of course with the Universal Studios Florida and parks around the world. So it was a challenge to try to come up with something that was, you wanted to have the IP presence, obviously, because that's a draw. But then you wanted to make sure it was uniquely Universal. And I think the team did an amazing job doing that. I mean, that park is like nothing I have ever seen. And when you go at night, it's a completely different experience at night. It just blew me away when I saw it the first time. Yeah, first time
I got to see it was not under construction, was from Bar Helios up at the top.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I imagined myself, I have this fantasy of getting in my DeLorean and going back to the Paris World's Fair, hanging out with Jules Verne, H.G. Wells on top of that. Looking over the Paris exposition. That I kind of felt like I was there looking down on a beautiful Art Nouveau World Expo.
Yeah, they did a great job. Great
awesome.
job. But you have that with attractions too. I mean, we talked about great memories. The Living Seas. I was part of that team under Tim Delaney's direction.
Yeah. And I remember how transportive that was.
It was
just immersed.
It was probably
bring back the hydrolator.
One
please.
of my favorite attractions, really, in my Disney side of my career was Living Seas, because we were kind of set off on the side at WDI at Ed at Flower Street, and a second floor of the building by ourselves, and we just got to do what we wanted to do and create that experience. And I remember when we ran the hydrolators on the first day, we got in and we got out and went to the sea-based ride vehicles, and this woman turned to her husband and she said, "How deep do you think we came down? Like 100 feet, 150 feet? And I thought, this guy's going to blow it. He's going to tell her what happened. He says, "No, I don't think more than 60. And I thought, yes, it worked.
Well, I don't think anyone said this, but to me, it's the predecessor to things like Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah.
Because it's just those layers and layers of deeper and deeper immersion.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, going from that film that Paul Gerber did, where at the end it outlined, in graphic form, exactly what you were going to see and step into, which is a great transition.
Absolutely.
And then to go through the tank and all the wonderful things that Kim Murphy did with that sea environment, and then come out into the sea base. And it was such
inspiring,
all-encompassing experience.
Absolutely.
I was really proud, and we had so much fun working on that project. It was a good, and I attribute a lot to the leadership. A great project is great to work on, but you have to have the right people involved. You have to have the right people giving you the opportunity. That's one thing that during a lot of the projects, the leadership, when Michael Eisner was there, they gave us the opportunity to present directly to Michael. A lot of times you're not given that chance, so you can get yelled at directly by Michael Eisner.
What a privilege!
No, it's great. I was a big fan of Michael Eisner. I just really enjoyed.
I was going to ask you. I mean, you've been there through some. You were there through some historic transitions.
When we
pre and post the Eisner
WED to WDI.
Yeah,
and it was
Ron
Miller,
Michael Eisner.
Yeah, Yeah, and it was great to watch because when we were wed, we weren't really an entity known to the public.
Right.
But then I think Michael and Frank Wells saw the opportunity to create something special.
Our own think tank, Skunk Works, R&D
it
Lab.
became worldwide.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I started. The whole thing began. I'm a lifetime Philadelphia Phillies fan, which I pay for constantly.
Sorry.
I know. Well, we've done some things good. Go Eagles. But I was on my way to a Phillies game with my baseball cap on in Pasadena. I stopped in a supermarket because I couldn't afford to buy food at Dodger Stadium. I could afford the cheap tickets. But I'm standing in line with my Phillies cap on, and this guy taps me on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, yo, you from Philly?" And I said, "Oh, yes, my good man. You must be from the same region." And turned out to be a guy named Mike McCullough. We got to be friends, and he told me he was working on this project called Epcot Center at a place called Wed Enterprises. And I thought, well, that sounds like fun. It's better than working at Beano's, which is where I was. That's where I was. I was a media manager. Sorry, Beano's is a good store. But that's where I got my start, just meeting Michael McCullough in the supermarket.
Wow.
So I learned about the whole thing. And then I had to go in and interview. And I interviewed with Randy Bright. And at the time, he was working with Rick Rothschild on the scripting for The American Adventure. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Really?" "Well, I played Thomas Jefferson in the musical." "Does that help?" He said, "That's really not what we did." So I said, "Oh." So he looked at my portfolio and he's looking at a beautiful assortment of spring blouses and prints and colors. And he said, "Is this really what we write?" I said, "Oh, let me write something." So he gave me the opportunity. He said, "Just go away and write something." So I wrote it and came back and he hired me.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it was. You just never know God's plan, right? I mean, one door closes, another one opens, and that's where you end up.
You either step in or you don't.
Right. So. If you're given the opportunity, you have to make the most of it.
Right.
But it's just the way things work sometimes.
Thanks for taking on that hero's journey and passing through those portals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but you have to have the opportunity to be given that, and I was given those opportunities.
Now, folks that come from a writing background versus a design background, have you ever seen kind of a tension, not struggle necessarily, because obviously it's about partnership, but in terms of the way that they become creative leaders, do you have not a preference, but a proclivity, or do you see strengths and weaknesses from either background?
I think a lot of the best designers I've had on my teams are people who came from the parks themselves, It's maybe overstating the fact, but they know what to expect from a guest experience. And the one thing that I preach to every team I ever did a project with, first off, you start with the operators. You have to bring your partners in on it from day one. In 40 plus years, I've never seen operations lose an argument in the field. They can't. They have to answer to the guests. Right? Yeah. We can be all the creative brouhaha we want, but they have to deal with the daily, one-on-one with the guests. And you know what? If they're not hitting their capacity or something's not working, it has to be shut down. They're going to change it because you have to keep the number one thing is always a guest. You always have to make that your first priority. And for the guest, the first priority in any project has to be safety. So those are the two first draws you bring in. But if you work with your partners in the park, you don't always win, but you compromise. So if you get to learn to work with each other over the years, they trust your opinion and you trust theirs, and you get a much better product. So when you go back to see your attraction a year or two later, God willing, it looks like it did when you opened it day one, and it hasn't changed. But you have to make sure that the guests are happy and satisfied first and foremost.
Yeah. Marty talks about a little bit of that healthy tension, sometimes unhealthy tension between the folks, running the operations, the Dick Nunesses of the world versus the Martys of the world, that creative side.
They did
versus
have
the operations, their moments, right?
Yeah, they had their moments.
But I mean, so you've been in different organizations and different eras. Have you seen that I don't know, power struggle or tension flip? I mean, have you seen any secrets to success in what the best balances are? Is it really just in that facilitation?
I think, again, there's things that win and lose. I remember we had the walking tour for the Disney MGM Studios. So you started out on the tram, and then you went directly onto the walking tour. It was like 2 hours. Right. That we eventually broke that up into two separate attractions. But I remember...
It was kind of based on like industrial factory tours.
Right,
like, going to a beer tour or
But
something.
you had to have a break.
Right.
There's nothing up for parents.
Bio break.
Bathroom break for their kids.
Exactly.
But I got a call one morning after the studio had been open for about, a year or so, that we used to go through the audio video editing, and then into Mickey's Theater at the end, after going through the sound stages. I got a call one morning that Dick Nunes had ordered a door be broken in right before the audio editing or video editing, and they were going to start the tour in the theater and come out that way. I kind of went, huh?
Wow.
So that's when being on site, you can go out and kind of go, wait, what are we doing? But by the time I got there, the door was in and guests were flowing the other way. But
General Nunes.
yeah, but you know, I admired Dick. He had the same goal.
Yeah.
We all did.
Right.
It was guest satisfaction.
Right.
That's the only thing that mattered to him. He had a little different way of getting there than Marty and his team did sometimes. But it was just all about the guests in every instance.
You're all making memories together, right?
That's right. And sometimes the memories are better than others. But, you know, you go through this times.
Yeah.
You know, it's a corporation, no matter what, when you work for the big companies. But still, you try to make it as personal as you can, and that's where the leadership starts. And Marty was like that. He was very personal with his guys. You know, you never had to worry about going up and stopping in his office, or you know, his door was always open. There was usually 30 people in it, but his door was always open. But it was a blessing. You know?
Well, that sounds very different from what I've read and heard about the early Sid Sheinberg, Jay, you know, Dave. They just a MCA culture, and I think you were able to dodge that bullet. But when you did transition from Disney to Universal, did it feel, you know, more alike than different, or were there some pretty significant cultural contrasts?
It was different. I mean, it was when I joined Universal Creative, it was under Scott Trowbridge's tutelage, and I remember we had lunch together when he was interviewing me. He said, "If you get used to the cultural change," and I said, "Well, as long as you're willing to accept the experience that I'm bringing with me from Disney, we'll be fine." And we were. It was great. And then a year later or so, Scott went to Disney. So
right.
I wrote him and I said, "So how's this cultural thing going for you?"
Yeah.
But we were only 60 people at the time, so it was a family.
Right.
It was a really close group. And when somebody new would come in the conference room, Mark Woodward would make somebody stand up and sing a song in front of the team. You know, that's how it was, that kind of knit group, you know. And Mark and Scott did a great job kind of mentoring anybody. And Dale Mason was part of that leadership of that group too, you know.
That's magic.
So it was great. Scott used to roll around the studio on his skateboard, you know, and it was like we all go out to lunch together. But now there's like 2,000 people in the company or something, so you have to run at a different pace. But I was blessed to come in when it was still magical at WDI, and then I got there and it was still a lot of fun. And it was. I mean, Universal gave me so many great opportunities because they were based here versus in California. Right. So, you know, working on The Simpsons, Transformers, Skull Island, Reign of Kong, and Springfield, and just a lot of great things, and things that don't get built, but you spent some time in development, and then later on you find, oh, they did do that, you know. So it was a great experience. I had just so many friends and memories. You know, we were talking earlier before we came on that you go through a 45-year career and you have so many good, dear friends from that. And there's not many places you can go and do that. And I really cherish that. You know, during IAPA every year, I get to see my life of my career come before me. You know, and you get to just talk to everybody all over again. It really makes it great.
Wow. Any tips that you would have for kind of that next generation of storytellers and placemakers? And
it's funny. When I was at Imagineering, we used to do have lunch with the Imagineer thing at the Brown Derby. And parents used to come by and used to say, "What courses should my child take to become an Imagineer?" And of course, being me, I'd say recess. And of course, they look at you like you had two heads, because what the heck is recess? Nobody does recess anymore. I don't know. The thing that's nice about our business model is there's so many disciplines, as you know. It takes so many different kinds of people to build a park, an attraction, that it doesn't matter what you're
I always call it a motley crew.
It is.
It's a Renaissance team, right?
You know, and the idea that, well, it's you have to be creative. Well, a writer and an artist are the creative, but I always tell people the most important creative person on my team was the finance person. Because if they couldn't figure out a way to make the budget and the numbers
not necessarily
work,
the accountant,
but wherever the finance person was. But if you couldn't figure out a way to afford it, it didn't matter how creative you got. You know, so it was that part of it. But anybody that's in any kind of engineering or construction management or modeling, I mean, there's always a place for you in the themed entertainment industry.
And a place for creativity, scheduling, critical path.
Exactly. And you don't have to be the penultimate writer or artist to contribute to the creativity on a project. And that's where, again, I go back to the leadership. but always allowing people. Don't pigeonhole people. So I talk to young people a lot, and they want to be an Imagineer with Universal Creative, and that's a great goal to set. But there's also, I think, some smaller companies that do just as great of things that presents a marvelous opportunity. Tom Acom in AOA is a great example. That they remind me very much of what WDI was like in the early 80s. They have that kind of mentality and feeling at their place, and they do amazing work, and they're given an opportunity to peek into all the cubicles and play in all the different sandboxes.
Yeah.
So I think it's great to have any place that you want to settle down to, but give yourself some openings and opportunities in different venues to find out what you really like. I would say a coordinator on a project is a great first project role, right? And because you're the hub. Everything passes through you. You get your fingers into all pieces of the pie. And I found a lot of times that the best producers came in were the people who started out as coordinators, because they learned that role. Because producer has to be involved with everything.
So post Universal independent consulting, what's some of your favorite clients, projects, collaborations?
Yeah, it's some that I can talk about, some that I will never talk about. No, no, it's
you can kill me. Just tell me.
No, the thing that's been nice about it, and again, it's a blessing that being retired now, I get to kind of pick and choose. Yeah. For 40 years, I had somebody tell me, this is a good idea, go do it. And you're like, is it really? But now I get to kind of work with friends.
Yeah, being able to steward your own time is always.
I said, it's got to be about the people. It's working with people I love being around. I'd rather go through hell on a project with people I like being with than a piece of cake project and not enjoy the company. So that's really important. I'm working on a book. It's not a career book. It's a book about my childhood. So those parents that wonder how you become an Imagineer. Yeah. Things like, burning down the woods in your backyard is a good start. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that, kids. So it's like that, and mostly it's for my two grandsons, Dennis and Colin, so they can realize what a complete lunatic their grandfather was when they grow up. But it's been great, and I have a chance to spend time with my wife. We're celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary at the end of this month. So,
and how many of those in Florida here?
Oh gosh, since '89, so 30 some years. But
congratulations, half century.
You think she'd be out on parole by now, for what she's put up with, but. Yeah, we've been through some great things, and I've been very blessed with it.
Well, I'm sure we're going to have people with some great marriage advice questions.
Two things: yes, and I'm sorry. The only two things you need to know.
Awesome. Well, let's go to the listeners and see what further conversation.
I'd love to call in.
Well, what a turnout, Mike. We've got East Coast, Left Coast, Indonesia in the house.
Wow.
So you command quite a crowd here.
I saw a Philly guy in the crowd there too. So go Birds.
Yeah, you need your support group to stick together.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining up. Australia. Wow, we're getting some frequent flyer miles here via Zoom. This is awesome. Hey, man, the questions are piling up. So I'm going to dig into it because I'm just hearing that conversation recently. I've got even more in my head. But are we at your home office? Because I'm appreciating your library, your knickknacks, all the good stuff here.
Yeah, none of this is real. It's all fake. It's all AI.
Zoom wallpaper. Awesome. Hey, someone mentioned that when you called yourself a young knucklehead walking into Imagineering, what was the aha for you, or the first moment you were realizing, oh, wow, this is actual serious art and craft here? Right?
Yeah, it was pretty awe-inspiring. The first aha was just, coming into a major company like Disney, having been a DJ and done sales, and I sold RVs for a while when I first went to California. So the idea of getting a real job was really thrilling. And they did a great job. We went through, I think, 5 days in those years of orientation, or 3 days or whatever. And you just got covered in pixie dust. So by the time you got to your interview, you were flying, But walking, in fact, the thing that Randy, I wrote for him is called The Interview. And it was literally an article, a story about my day going to WDI for the interview and walking down the hall and just seeing, classic posters from all the attractions I knew my whole life. And just the history and the culture that was there, you were infused with it the second you walked in the building.
Yeah, so powerful. What year was that again?
That was August of 1980. Wow.
Way back time machine.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's pre-MTV. That's like...
Yeah, I was only 6 when I started there, so
Awesome. Well, you mentioned back in not even the 80s, in 1980, really, starting with work. It happened to be working in open door policy with Legends that were just doing what they were wired to do. Didn't really seek out that recognition. Do you think that the industry's kind of changed in terms of how we think about things like authorship, credit? I know the Theme Entertainment Association has kind of helped with creating guidelines and standards for project credits, because we are in one of these collective art forms where nobody really gets, end credits or screen credits at least.
Yeah.
Has that changed, do you think, as the industry has matured, I guess?
I don't really think so. I think there's just a pride in the group dynamic when you get on a team. If you've ever done theater, you run a show, and then when the curtain comes down for the last show, it's kind of like, oh, you miss your family, right? So the project is the same way, except it goes on for several years, or if not close to a decade in some cases. But I think once you get involved with your team, it becomes less about you and more about we. Because that's really what it becomes. You have to be part of the team. If you try to make yourself stick out for some reason that's not valid or good for the project, you're not going to last long. You may get through and get your name out there for something, but you're probably not going to be on the next project, or at least where you want to be. So I think there's a lot of pride in what people do, but I think there's also a lot of humility, because there's a lot of great, talented people who just do it because they love to do it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of real talented people that probably could be making more money or getting more credit in some other art forms or disciplines. But you're just kind of destined for this because you're passionate and wired about it. That's one of the things I really enjoy about the folks we get to work with.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the general, the writing artist standpoint, and you can have a career doing something for 40 some years, that's a pretty amazing accomplishment. Not for me personally, but just that the industry affords that opportunity for people in that genre to work their whole life and the whole career on it. It's a blessing.
Yeah. Mike, I think a couple of folks have either worked with you or know you have kind of noticed, how you've been kind of outspoken in, mentioning how operations really needs to be brought into the room from day one. Curious, is there a particular project where you learned that the hard way? And then is there any kind of keys to making sure that kind of, that tension, if you will, between ops and creative, is productive instead of adversarial?
I think I can't think of one that was confrontational at the time, but the story I told in the interview about, the Dick Nunes knocking the doors in the wall. I think having the relationship with the operations team at the studio at that time helped get us around that and get us to the next step. But it is important. And that's always been one of my pet peeves in a project, is to talk to the operators right up front and explain to them what the intent is. And they're going to give you the feedback for the theoretical hourly capacity. And, they're driving the ultimate guest experience after we get it open. So, but not just operations. I mean, you need to work with tech services. You need to work with marketing. They're going to have a certain angle. They might want to build something different than what's currently on the docket for the park, but they have a certain reason from a marketing standpoint what they feel they can push. So you have to work again with them, because ultimately, no matter how great your project is, they're going to be the ones promoting it and getting people through the gates. They're getting the clicks to come in through the turnstiles, through the marketing. So it's important to work with all the partners on every aspect of it. And maintenance is another one. If you put in equipment in an attraction that they've never seen before, they have no spares for, and something starts going wrong with that equipment, well, now you got a problem, because the first thing they're going to do is shut it down because they can't operate it. So that's a very important part of it as well.
Yeah. Well, I assume that someone want to go way back time machine, talk about Marty Sklar. I assume that, among other things, that's one of his gifts, and kind of the understanding that, having started off, I think, at City Hall in Town Square at the original Main Street in 1955, he had some clue, at least with the guest complaints piling up downstairs from the office there. But what are some other qualities that made Marty such a beloved, effective leader, would you say?
Well, I think in what I said in the interview was the kind of the personal part of it. He was never somebody that was so high and above everybody you couldn't stop, or he'll stop and talk to you in the hallway walking by, or he'll just call you at the end of the day if he sees you and say, "Come in, let's talk about something." It was that kind of relationship you had, and he obviously worked side by side with Walt, as a lot of those men and women did at that time. So he believed so much in what we were doing and what the industry is about, what the guest experience should be, that he just wanted to make sure that his people knew how it worked. I mean, one of my first reviews with Marty was sitting in Edie's conference room, and we were working on something for Communicore, and I think there was some kind of animated owl that we were going to do, and he said, "So Mike, what do you think of it?" in this room full of people. And I was, still wet behind the ears. And I said, "Wow, Marty, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's going to work." And well, we used my glasses. He had his glasses on. He took them off and he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "I think it's good." And I went, "Hey, what do I know? Let's do it." So he was always very forthright on things. But he was also quick to tell you did a good job too.
Yeah. That's awesome. So got some friends and neighbors here that are wanting to go into some rabbit holes. So we're going to get nerdy here and go down some specifics. So starting off with Bill Zanetti wanting to know, how did you get the gig of being Commander Fulton at the Living Sea?
Thanks, Bill.
Ask you, how did that happen?
Well, I was one of the producers on the Living Seas, and I figured a good way to save money was to use my voice and the other No-Do production people. Yeah. So actually all the voices in the season, the Hydrolator and then my voice as Commander Fulton, were all, WDI men and women. Wow. Yeah, part of the team. And because I could call a shot. Well, I mean, Tim Delaney had to prove it too, but he liked the way it sounded. I ended up doing another voice for an animated Atlas of the World. One of the animated features that I wrote and directed, produced there. But I did the voice because I was cheap.
No-Do Productions. Love it.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, another rabbit hole of Star Tours. What did that one teach you about blending film language with physical space? That, pretty formative, influential attraction. It really changed the grammar of rides and attractions.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a small part that I played in that. I was the foreman droid at the top of the queue as you're going up. Tom Fitz was really, and Rick Rothschild were the guys, the creative forces behind that. But Tom came to me one day late in the project and he said, "We got to go down to Disneyland." And we went down there when they were working on it, and the droids are down there. And he says, "I don't have a script for these guys yet." So he, literally turned around, drove back up to Glendale, wrote a script, jumped in the studio, and he recorded the lower droid voice and I was the foreman voice up top. So it was one of those quick, we got to get it done kind of thing. So it worked out pretty well. And it stayed that way for until they redid it a few years ago.
Well, I love it. Well, fast forwarding a few years, someone mentioned, your involvement with Adventures by Disney in the early years. And that seems like such a, shift from, state-of-the-art, ride technology to flexing different muscles, no ride system, no facade, really just the real world. How did that project change how you think about immersion?
It was a great project. It was actually, I think, the last project I did when I was at WDI. but we did the best we could to include all those elements we would normally include in a theme park, being driven by story. I worked with another guy named Bob Zalk, and the two of us were responsible for putting together the whole creative aspect of the first two adventures to Hawaii and Yellowstone. And we came up with an overall theme for the week's trip, and then each day had a sub-theme pertaining to that. We went out and we put together videos, be they animated or whatever, that people would ride, the guests would ride on the buses to a location that would talk about the day's theme. We produced some original material. We had two guides, which I think is what made Adventures so special. We had a local guide, and then we had a Disney guide. The local guide was there to make sure you got the story of the lay of the land where you were, and the Disney guide make sure that Disney experience was still the ultimate goal for the whole adventure. So it was great. I mean, I remember sitting on the beach in Kalani, and with Bob, we were having a Mai Tai, and they said, getting paid for this, dude. So in fact, I think the Hawaii adventure turned out so well that's why they ended up building the Aulani resort.
Yeah.
But I spent the better part of the summer of 04 and 05 shuffling back and forth between Hawaii and Yellowstone. So that was a tough life.
Yeah. Brutal.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, what's the compare contrast there of kind of what I like to call soil specific storytelling, kind of distilling kind of narratives and the local culture versus working with, world renowned known IPs, for attractions that might run 20 plus years, with the same script and the same hardware and the software. Do you have a preference or difference of approach or?
Well, the ones with the IPs are always more challenging for several reasons. Number one, to your point, that these attractions are supposed to last for 20 years. So the operational aspects of it and longevity of the equipment you have to use and how it's all put together is a completely different feel than talking about the history of Yellowstone. It's been there for a long time. That's God's theme park. He did a pretty good job. So all we have to do is
did all right. Yeah.
So it was probably a little more casual doing the Adventures by Disney because you do have IPs to deal with, and to be honest, they can be very tough. They can be very tough because it's their badge, it's their IP. So no matter what you're going to do in the park, you have to make sure that it coincides with what they expect it to be. And I did 3 projects with the Simpsons folks. And they were tough. They were really tough. But they had to be sure that what we were putting in front of our guests is what they would expect to see on a Simpsons show. And we were concerned when we shut down Back to the Future. It was such a big popular attraction at the studios in Florida that people would be upset by that. But then on top of that, we had to meet the expectations of a worldwide Simpsons fan base. And we felt pretty good about it. We had very good reviews from Simpsons fans and maybe somebody who lived on Pluto for a while that didn't know who Homer and Bart were, but they enjoyed it as well. That was important.
Awesome. Got a great question here from one of our former Storylanders, one of my favorite 3D modelers, Franklin Sterling. You've seen the themed entertainment industry go from simple storytelling to these massive, elaborate worlds, case study, epic universe. When you look back, is there a specific human element that's kind of stayed constant over the years? Like what's one thing about what a guest would actually feel that hasn't changed at all since kind of early days, 1980, Imagineering versus today, 40 years, or a few decades later?
Yeah, I think the real great aspect about the parks is a social environment, right? I mean, you get to experience these attractions and these shows in the park itself with total strangers who you might see, an hour later in another queue.
Well, including your own kids sometimes.
Right. Yeah, right. And I've always been a firm believer that that's one of the most important things about what we do is bringing people together. Now, it is a challenge because most people are spending their park like this, right? Looking at their phones. And I know in the latter years of my career, I had many discussions with people about why do we have to have a cell phone in the queue? What does it have to do? I mean, in Kong, we're talking it's 1931 out in the middle of the ocean on Skull Island. Why would anybody have a cell phone? Why would we? But we came up with ways to say, well, it's an NBC broadcast you can pick up because that, as people used to say, they're going to have them anyway. So you have to figure out a way to make it work. But you also want to get people out of the phone and talking to each other. That's my feeling, right? I mean, we all spend probably way too much time looking at our iPads and our phones and our computers. And I think the parks afford us an opportunity to get to know each other again. Your family, friends, and people you don't know, but you get to meet. And I think that's one of the best things of what we do.
Amen. Emily Patterson's asked, you mentioned working around existing IP when you're working on blue sky development. For example, for Epic Universe, what was the dynamic between marketing and creative when you're selecting IPs, developing attractions, or looking at the menu IPs for an entire park? Is like, for example, market studies, marketing involved from the beginning? Or they brought in later, or just walk us through.
They do. I mean, you look at Q scores, they break it down to character popularity, right? And we already had great relationships, obviously, with the Potter organization, Harry Potter and JK in the group. And with Super Mario, we had already had a relationship with them. So we knew that was popular. So that was almost like a no-brainer. And our own IP for Monsters, for Dark Universe, I remember the very first blue sky session we had, the old fashioned, we put up the board on the wall and pin up cards to it. And one of the cards said Monsters because it was ours. And it filled up immediately. I mean, everybody just flew cards onto the wall to come up with ideas. But I think ultimately it was the last land to finally get, fully developed, because there was just so much there. You had to figure out a way to tell the story. And the people that ended up doing it did an amazing job. But yeah, certainly marketing, as I mentioned earlier, is a big, big part of it, because ultimately they have to market what we create. And they're going to look at the popular things. And again, it's a relationship thing as well. And how long can we have this property? The expectancy of a lot of things we build are 20 years, because that's what you want to plan for. But sometimes they don't last that long for, business reasons or for guest experiences. Maybe it didn't turn out as well. But marketing is a big part of that. We were involved with them early on, and I'm sure the team stayed very close to them all the way through. And public relations. I did a lot of PR work at Universal, and it's tough because when you're getting ready or close to an attraction opening, you want to talk about everything, but they might only have a little bit of thing to drop a kernel to get people interested. So you have to kind of work with them as well to get the message out the way they want it to get out, because it's all part of the plan. And again, it's a team thing. No matter what division you work in, you have to work together if the guest experience is going to be the best.
Well, Mike, you've seen a transition in the industry from kind of I'd say more flexible genre-based lands or worlds or realms to kind of more of an IP-based kind of immersion within, themed lands, and those being the building blocks of a park. And as we both know, and as you just talked about, not every IP has a shelf life of Star Wars or Harry Potter. Do you have a preference? What do you think about that shift in the industry nowadays? How everything has to just be an IP land?
Well, this will be where my age comes to play, because I look at some of it and I think we'll never have another Haunted Mansion. We'll never have another Pirates unless Johnny Depp does another pirate movie, which he's doing, I think. Yeah. So I think it's great to have the IPs, but sometimes I worry that it limits like the out of the box, completely new creative concept. Yeah. Right. It's kind of like AI. If you're just keeping the same images into it, you're just going to get another version of that image. You're not going to get a Picasso or something that's totally different and new. So I still believe a lot in allowing the teams to come up with something totally different and new. But again, if you go back to what we were just talking about, it's a lot harder to market something that nobody knows anything about than it is to say, here's a new Star Wars land or a new Potter land. So there's a business aspect of it that you always have to pay attention to. But as a writer by trade, I still like the idea of coming up with new, fresh ideas. And fortunately, Walt did too. So, but he still had his IPs, right? I mean, in the animated films were very present in the original park. But I find it interesting. Earlier, or at some point, in the mid late 80s, we met with some people at the studio, and they thought, well, why don't we do some movies about some of the attractions? So I remember a bunch of people sat down and came up with their ideas, and it never happens. But then years later, Pirates came out, and they're like Pirates 7 now or something. And Disney has added characters to the attraction. So eventually you can get the kind of mix, but sometimes I worry that the industry becomes so dependent on IP that we lose sight of some of the originality we want to include in the experience as well. Because, I mean, let's face it, if you're not working on a Disney or a Universal park or a major park like that, a smaller venue isn't going to be able to afford to go out and buy an IP like that. So you have to depend on people come up with great experiences that aren't IP driven, but just have a great story and repeatable for guests to come back to your venue.
Yeah. Well, I love the experience you mentioned with Adventures by Disney, because, I know it's in just the indigenous cultures and the local context, there's so many amazing stories that really deserve to be
absolutely
heard and lived. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to knock out at least a half a dozen questions with some grouping, which apparently the group didn't like your recess answer. So they're seriously wanting to know. Basically variations on the theme of how to get in the industry, how to transition in, whether you have zero experience or if you want to transition in from a completely different industry, or what are some minimum requirements. Basically, how does anyone get into your Cool Kids Club, Mike? Spill the beans.
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to what we again said in the interview, that the nice thing is that there's a spot for anybody in our business, regardless of what your discipline is. I really believe that. I mean, I think officially there's like 140 or 150, or maybe more now, disciplines that are available to work, or we need to do a park. So I think, and it sounds old fashioned, but pursue whatever discipline, whatever interest you have, with full heart, and become the best at that, because most likely, whatever it is, you have a pretty good shot at landing something in an attraction. And as far as getting into someplace, contacts, that's why I think TEA is just so great, because it gives next gen people an opportunity to come and meet people within the industry, because it really is, it's a lot about who you know, only because they can lead you and give you an idea of who to speak to or what projects may be coming up. And I firmly believe in places like AOA with Tom Akam and Mike Ostendorf, who aren't, maybe the big dogs, if you will, but they're really, really good. And it provides an opportunity for young people, especially through an internship or whatever, to really get the mix of what's available and what different aspects of a project you might be interested in doing. It's really important, because who knows, you might start, say, I want to be a writer, and you find out that you should have gone to school for engineering. Sure. But that's the opportunity. Make sure you just find what you love to do, and you'll be good. You'll be fine.
That's great. Any advice for folks, kind of hitting career challenges, a moment where you want to give up, a roadblock? Ellen's got a couple of great questions around that idea of just overcoming kind of something that's just a roadblock in your way.
Yeah, I firmly believe that, as I said again in the interview, that one door closes and God opens another one. When I left Imagineering, I was there for 25 years, and a decision was made that I want to stay and live in Florida. I didn't want to go back and live in California. So we amicably parted ways. And I was kind of like, wow, for 25 years, I mean, an Imagineer is who I was, but the opportunity to work at Universal came up and completely flipped 180 for me. It was the best thing that could have happened to me. So you never know. You just never know. When you're crestfallen, don't give up. Use it as an opportunity to learn from it, and then really think, is this what I want to do? Sometimes the door closes because it's not really what you should be doing. And maybe you pursued it. Maybe you got into it. Maybe you took a job someplace just to get into that company, but it's not what you love to do. So that's why I say, pursue your dreams. They're your dreams. Follow them.
I mean, you may not have known at the time that door was closing that around the corner you'd be tasked with leading creative development on Epic Universe or something of that scale, right?
Yeah, no, it's true because I mean, Universal is based here in Florida, so the opportunity was tremendous. And again, people like Mark Woodbury and Terry Koo gave me great opportunity, and I'm forever grateful for the amazing, allowing my talents to be mixed with an incredible organization that's been doing innovative new things for a long time.
Well, Cam was asking about the similar differences between WI versus Universal Creative. If someone was like, looking at taking the same job at both, are you allowed to say which one you would nudge them towards?
No, actually, I get that question. I get the question a lot because I spend a lot of time with both companies.
Yeah,
and for me, it was really
perspective on that for sure.
Well, and it really depends on kind of where you are. I mean, chapter one of my career was at WDI, and I was blessed to be there again when the masters who created the industry were there, and I got to learn. From at that time was what the best in the industry had to offer. And so I was able to build my experience and get a lot of exposure to what the guest experience is supposed to be. And then when I went to Universal, it was a new chapter. I just took all the things I had learned as an Imagineer, but applied them in a whole different way with incredible, exciting projects, and with a new group of people. For me, it's really a lot about not the company, but the people that you're working with. And I think there's a number of people that have been at Universal and been at Disney and come back and forth maybe sometimes. So both companies offer amazing opportunities to people. But again, I would highly recommend, not even to young people, but for somebody who's looking to switch a career, is to look at some of the other companies like AOA and Tate and some of the other ones that do amazing. Storyland Studios, for example, that do amazing things, right? You guys do great work, and who wouldn't be privileged and blessed to work with a group like Storyland in their career?
I need to get you back out to Trilith to see the our efforts of our little trip out there.
That was a good trip. I enjoyed that.
That was fun. Satria's got a great question that has resonated with me as well. I mean, Mike, you're just one of the most respected and liked leaders in our industry, which is not easy to do, because quite often it's easier to be either liked or respected. But you've got both covered. Any kind of, again, methods to be a great leader, communicator? We're just trying to glean whatever we can from you, man.
Well, I think I'll give you an example. Bob Weiss, who everybody knows in the industry, at a very early age in a leadership role, learned that if you make your team look good or look great, you'll be good, right? And I've always been a firm believer in that your role as a leader is to take the bullets when they're flying and to duck out of the way when the praise bucket comes around, right? And that's sincere, because if you want to see your team grow, one of the best moments of my life is when I see a young person that was on a team, and the next project they go to, they've got a more senior role, and then they have another senior role to watch them grow. And I'm sure that the guys that we worked with, in the early 80s had the same feeling. So I think good leadership is about the team, not about the leader, and just believing in yourself, believing in your people, and being open with them. I mean, I've seen too many instances where people are backstab or somebody's talking about something. If somebody had a problem with somebody else on the team, I would bring them both into my office to talk about it. I'm not going to talk to you and talk to somebody else about what's going on. I might do that first, but then we're going to get together and talk about it. So you don't have to be a butthead to be a good leader. You really don't. I mean, you can be good with people. You have to know your job is to lead. So at some point you have to make a decision, and some people aren't going to be happy with that decision. But, I've always compared to that. If you're in a sailboat and the wind dies down, you have no direction, and you could end up drifting in a place you don't want to be. It's the same with a project. If you don't make a decision, you're lying fallow and the project just waffling, you're going to go someplace you don't want it to go. Make a decision. It may be the not most correct decision. I don't want to say bad, but maybe a bad decision. But oftentimes those decisions can be corrected. No decision is the worst possible solution, because then you're going nowhere, and the clock's ticking, the burn rate is increasing on your project. So believe in yourself and believe in your team. And and don't be afraid to say, I don't know. If somebody asks you a question in a presentation, you better be able to either have the answer or kindly say, I don't know, but I'll find out for you.
Sure.
And never go into presentation by starting and saying, this isn't really what we want to do, but I want to show it to you anyway. Because there's certain people that will bite your head off for that. So figure out a different way to make that statement.
Well, man, that is just pure genius, and really appreciate you sharing that, and really appreciate that posture of humility. It really is the difference between leadership versus just authority or management.
Yeah.
Sure. David and Lisa J kind of asked kind of a similar question in terms of just what what was the most rewarding kind of career highlight through the years? Was there ever just that project that just everything fell into place? There was no roadblocks. It was just like, the melody from heaven dropping down.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever had a project with no roadblocks, but that would be too easy.
Me neither.
Yeah. Well, certainly the honor of becoming TA master was a highlight. Only because I look at the other people that are in that group, and I'm just blown away by who they are, and it's an extreme privilege just to be mentioned with some of these people. It's tough to pick projects. I mentioned before, Seas was a great project. I was very, very proud and thrilled with Skull Island Reign of Kong, because it was, as the team and anybody at Universal will tell you, my favorite term for that project was massive. Everything about it. I mean, from the vehicle to the figure to the scale of the outside.
Indoor, outdoor.
Yeah. And we had such a great team of people. Again, a lot of young people who are now going on to better and bigger positions within Universal. Adam Rivers was my associate producer. And I think Adam's now like the VP. So it's great, but he's a tremendous talent. I could see that from day one with him. And a lot of people like that. So it was that team effort, and it was challenging. We had a lot of technical issues, to overcome. But we took an area in the queue where we didn't want to show video or film, because the environment didn't call for that. And Indiana Jones and Disneyland had done such an incredible job, still one of my favorite attractions, in their film and everything they did. So we took this kind of stone cold cave-like environment. I think we created a pretty cool experience going through there. And so by the time you got to the ride, you're so psyched about it. And there's no track laid out in front of you. So it was a trackless vehicle. So it was really a cool moment. So, and the best thing is anytime you see the guest reaction, and again, it sounds old fashioned, but when you spend years of your life dedicated to something, and you see the guests getting off a ride vehicle and applauding, or just hear somebody a kid make a comment about, gee, that was so cool, I love doing that. It really makes it really all worthwhile. That's what it's all about, because the guest experience is what it's all about, right? You have to make that work. And when you see that work, you just give your team a pat on the back and go, way to go, people.
Well, Franklin's got another great question, and this is timely. I've spent all day in a Blue Sky creative session kickoff, and the question is, when you're brainstorming so many big ideas floating in the air, what is the key to cutting through the noise and knowing when a concept's going to be a hit versus just more complications and layers to the story?
You just tell them all to shut up. No. Yeah, that's a great question. I always equate it to a painter, right? A master painter is, how do you know when the painting's done? I mean, as someone who can't draw a stick figure, how do you know when that last little smudge or that last little dot of paint is right? And first of all, the budget will tell you when you're done because you're out of money with the schedule. But as far as the creativity, I'm not sure you ever get fully done. I think even when we open a project, there's always things at every corner that you say, I wish we'd have done this a little bit of this, that a little bit different. But the good part about that, it gives you the energy for the next project. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's something that didn't turn out right. And we always have, at the end of a project, report that says what went wrong, what we could do better the next time. The problem is a lot of times nobody goes and reads that. So you make the same mistakes. So I think it's a matter of keeping your energy. And again, from a self standpoint, maybe it's not your idea that gets done. It's somebody else's, but it's the old thing of no, it's not no, but it's yes and, right? I mean, that's an old term we use a lot. And so if you can contribute to it and help it be a team effort. I mean, look, we all have egos, right? You want to be patted on the back for the work that you do. But I think in the creative part, in the blue sky, because it's so wide open at that point, and you never, I mean, this personally, you never want to undershoot blue sky, right? Because we all know it's going to get value engineered and things are going to shave down. So, I mean, you're in blue sky, shoot for the moon. I mean, you have to realize it. If you develop a $10 billion project and you have $1 billion on your budget, then you're shooting in the wrong moon. But, never hold back. Like the old adage, there's no such thing as a bad idea, which is total nonsense, by the way. I've heard a lot of really bad, but let it be open. Again, if you're leading that group, don't shut people down. Yeah. Right? Give everybody a chance to shine. I mean, we had somebody in the ride group at Universal, Ilana, who was a ride designer, very quiet and reserved, but she had a chance to give a presentation on a concept that she was doing, and she blew the room away. She just flourished. Right. And it was so cool to see her come out of her shell and become this superstar when it comes to concept development. And that's the kind of thing that makes it all worthwhile.
So good. So, Mike, we've got a lot of people on the call from at different levels in the industry, from those wanting to get in versus those that have
want to get out,
been and want to get out, or left and want to get back in. Any just final words of encouragement, admonishments, advice, nudges that you would kind of leave us with as we kind of look at that next generation of well,
I think if you're wanting to get back in, make sure you're getting back in someplace different than where you left, maybe because maybe where you were wasn't where you're supposed to be. So make sure you're going to jump back into the right pool of water this time. And for the younger people, a lot of what we talked about, just pursue what you want to do. Because there's such opportunity within our industry. Go to CE events, meet people, travel. See a lot of things. See as much as you can in the world. It's great to see videos, but try to go places. That makes a difference because you absorb the environment, the culture, and the people. Some of the great designers that I've worked with, like Joe Rohde, who's traveled the world, and Joe just absorbs everything like a sponge, and he has this marvelous way of turning around and making,
not just theme parks, right?
No, everything. And that's just the way Joe is. That's the way he thinks. So you want to absorb as much of an experience yourself, and don't overuse the word immersive, please, because that's the most overused term in the English language right now. But just go out and experience things yourself, and that makes you a better designer.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for your generosity of your time, giving us another hour, and everyone for joining in from around the world, apparently. And can't wait to have some more adventures down the road with you and others on the call. Thanks, everybody.
Look forward to it. Thank you for doing it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. It was great to talk to you.